Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavare Kaskatare Satarine. Prabhupada. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Bol. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama Krishna Yadubara Namaha, Hare Hare Rama Krishna Yadubara Namaha, Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan, Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Gaur Vimalande. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Praskritare Satanane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaur Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyacha Patitanam Bhavinbhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So thank you everyone for coming this evening. My wife Vishaka Devi and I have presented this slideshow, quite a few temples in our travels. Some of you may have seen it. But we tried to shed a little light on how we came to Krishna consciousness. I was a freelance photographer, and I was always amazed in covering the devotees, their story, how they came to join the movement. It fascinated me because the stories were, many of them quite mystical. So I was a photographer in New York City. My pictures were with a photo agency. And the first professional assignment I had, and the last professional assignment, was to cover the Hare Krishna movement in New York City. So I was very attracted the minute I walked in the temple. And Vishaka Devi, Jean at the time, I was John, she was Jean, she had the opposite reaction. She was a atheist, a very good preacher of atheistic philosophy. So that created a little bit of disturbance in our relationship. I was attracted, she was not. So this is the first glimpse I got of the temple. I was taken directly to the Arati ceremony in front of Lord Jagannath. And I had this realization. I wasn't looking for religion, but I had this realization. This was my eternal occupation to worship the Lord. And I don't know where that came from. It was out of the blue, as they say. So we were both in photography school in upstate New York. Jean was an undergraduate, I was a graduate student, and it came time for me to do my thesis, master's thesis in photography. So being attracted to the movement, I thought, let me go to India, meet Prabhupada, and take a photo essay of the activities of the devotees in India. So in December 1970, I flew to Bombay. I had an address. I went to the address. They say, I'm sorry, they just left. They're in Surat, Gujarat. I didn't know where Surat was, but the host of the devotees, he put me on a train to Surat that night. So I arrived about 9 o'clock, and I asked, I saw the rickshaw wallas, but I had no address, and Surat is quite a big town. And they came up to me, and I said, American Hare Krishna. And everyone knew where the devotees were. They took me straight to the house. And the devotees were staying in a very nice man's house. His name was Mr. Jariwala. But just a little background, when devotees arrived in India, it took India by storm. They could not believe that Western Vaishnavas had come to India, because for hundreds of years they had foreign rule, foreign subjugation, trying to wipe out the Indian culture. So it was an incredible event for the Vaishnavas to land in India and have Harinam through the streets. Now, many of these pictures are taken from individual film frames. As you know, there's 24 frames in a second of film. So there's literally hundreds of thousands of pictures that we can take from our movies. I love this picture because it really illustrates Thakur Bhaktivinoda's prediction that people of all races will come and be united under the banner of Harinam. Tamal Krishna Goswami on the left, Dinanath Prabhu in the middle, Bhanu Swami, then Brahmachari on the right. And then at this particular event in Bombay, Prabhupada jumped off the stage and came down with the devotees and started dancing. Everybody went wild. So Prabhupada's tour, it was his World Sankirtan mission. And he was on tour with devotees all over India. And devotees would go by train, Prabhupada also, and wherever they stopped, they would jump off and have kirtan on the platform. And hundreds of people would gather immediately. So at every stop, you can figure it, for months of traveling, at least 3 months of traveling, They went all over India and spread the Harinam movement. And again, people are just amazed to see Western Vaishnavas. So this is Surat. This is where I landed. That night, I was introduced to Prabhupada. I showed him the magazine article that had been printed in America. He appreciated the article, and he said he had a question. He said, well, I told him about what I'd like to do is stay with the party and travel and take photographs for my master's thesis. So Prabhupada looked at me and he said, are you going to become a devotee? And I couldn't imagine shaving up and wearing robes. So I said, I don't think so, Prabhupada. And then he said something disastrous. He said, then you cannot stay. Here it was, 10 o'clock at night, 10,000 miles from home, and I cannot stay. Anyway, the devotees put me up that night. I got up in the morning. Prabhupada didn't say anything. Devotees didn't say anything, and I stayed for 2 months, traveling. So this goes to show that Prabhupada knew, everyone he met, he knew their minds and hearts. He could see that I had little attraction for Krishna consciousness, and he fanned that little, very small spark. So this is, guess who, arrived in India. A crow amongst swans. It was a photographer's dream to come to Surat and see the reception the people gave in that town. Just incredible. This is the second night at the, you can see the main street was completely filled with people. People on the rooftops, people out hanging out of the windows. And the newspaper in Surat, they would print the route of the Harinam every day. And wherever the Harinam went, the people would find out, of course, before in the newspaper, and they would decorate the streets with cloth, banners. And you can just see the eagerness of the people to greet the Harinam party. This is Bhanu Swami, Bhanu Das Brahmachari. We couldn't go more than a few yards, actually, before we were stopped, and arti was offered to the Harinam party, garlands, drinks, sandalwood paste. That's Rivadinandan Prabhu, the tall devotee, Malati Devi is getting garlanded. These black and white pictures are the pictures that I took as part of my art photography from my master's degree, and then there were color frames taken from movies. One devotee had a movie camera. Just remember that there were no iPhones or cameras in phones. They were all separate. So very few devotees had a camera or even a movie camera. That was very rare. Prabhupada taking his walk near the river. There's Durlabh Prabhu in the background leading the Boy Scouts in Harinam. You can see the little camera on his wrist. That's a movie camera. So we're very thankful to Durlabh Prabhu for providing these wonderful films and still pictures. Prabhupada was extremely animated during this lecture. I took about a full roll of film just on his gestures. This Nanda Kumar, Prabhupada's servant, playing the drum. This engagement was in a small village outside of Surat. This is Mangal Arati in Srila Prabhupada's room. Prabhupada's room was very small in this Mr. Jariwala's house. And there were about 25 devotees, including myself. This is probably the most intense, devotion-filled Mangal Arati I've ever been to. The kirtans were so intense. That's Yamuna Devi on the right, leading. Prabhupada would often ask her to lead the kirtan. And Prabhupada was tireless. He would go to 3 or 4 engagements per day. We could hardly keep up with him. There's Kaushalya Devi in the background. She knew the Isha Upanishad by heart. She would sing it. Prabhupada would often ask her to sing the Isha Upanishad mantras. That's Mr. Jariwala with the Gandhi cap on the right. And he was our host. Very wonderful devotee. And when we left his house, we spent about 10 days there. When we left his house, he paid obeisances to all of us. And he got up with folded palms and he said, if I've committed any offenses, please forgive me. He didn't commit any offenses. We committed offenses to him. Our young teenagers and early 20s. Anyway, after he said that, he started to cry. And Prabhupada looked at us, he said, this is a Vaishnava. Just a very humble, wonderful person. The next stop was Kumbh Mela. Prabhupada asked us to do 3 things at the Kumbh Mela. One was Harinam every day, at least twice a day, morning and evening, and deity worship and prasadam distribution. Prasadam distribution was the most difficult because we had to cook on wood fires, open fires, and it was very hard to find fuel. So Prabhupada wanted us to distribute, mass distribution. So Rivadinanda Prabhu was the cook. He said it was the most difficult engagement he's ever had. There's a lineup of early devotees. That's Giriraj Das Brahmachari in the back right with a blanket over his head. It was extremely cold in Allahabad at that time. Madhavisa Prabhu with the drum. Prabhupada called him the king of kirtan. Tamal Krishna Das Adhikari at the time on the right, just over. Hansaduta Prabhu on the very right, in the white chadar. Just behind him is Yamuna Devi. This man would seek out Prabhupada every day, and when he found him, he would start jumping up and down with his arms raised. Prabhupada liked him very much. You can see baby Saraswati, Shamsundar Prabhu's daughter, in the upper left. And Prabhupada said she was a great preacher. And during kirtan, she was always have her arms raised. And she would come up to people and pull on their dhoti or sari and say, guess what? And people would say, what? And she would say, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you should worship him. And then she'd run away. She preached whatever she knew. So Prabhupada was very kind. Actually, there's a long history of wherever Prabhupada went, he wanted to stay with his devotees, his disciples. That was no different in Allahabad. So Prabhupada lived in a tent. Well, it was extremely cold in February 1971. Prabhupada could have stayed at the Gaudiya Math, could have stayed in a hotel, but he chose to stay with us. Prabhupada took us one day by rickshaw to the Gaudiya Math. This is the Sri Rupa Gaudiya Math. Prabhupada actually served in this temple for many years as a grihastha. He had his pharmaceutical business. The deity is there, Yamuna Devi on the left. And here we are in Benares, Lord Chaitanya's appearance day. And Prabhupada was drawn through the streets in a parade, in a chariot drawn by white horses. Very grand reception. That's Jayapataka Swami on the lower left. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki. When Madhuji made this shirt for Prabhupada, she was thinking before she made it, what kind of style should I make? So she was thinking that Prabhupada's a cowboy, I'll just make a Western style shirt. So Prabhupada, very happily wore it. Again, these are taken from still movie frames, quite good quality. I think this is probably the closest we'll ever get to Prabhupada, visually. This is one of the very large pandals that Prabhupada held across India, the Cross Maidan Pandal in Mumbai. And this was a huge event. Shamsundar Prabhu was in charge of the advertising, and he would have these huge banners hanging down the side of buildings. So actually, the whole town knew about this event. It was right in the middle of downtown Mumbai. And we can see the crowds. At least 10,000 people would come every event, sometimes 20 in the evening. And all throughout the day, thousands of people would come through. We had photographic exhibits and different preaching places. And they were just, again, thrilled to see the Western sadhus. Actually, Lokanath Swami first heard that the Western sadhus were going to be at this pandal. So he was very attracted to meet them. So that was where he first met the devotees. And another, one of our sannyasi godbrothers came first to this pandal. Do you know who that is? Radhanath Swami. So you just go back a second, you see the crowd. So Prabhupada asked, I believe it was Gurudas, to go in the back of the audience and pick this Western sadhu and bring him on stage and have him sit next to Prabhupada. Quite amazing. So this was a marriage ceremony. And this is Vrindavan Prabhu from Sweden and his wife from Australia. So Prabhupada, this was on stage, one of the evenings, the ceremony, in front of, tens of thousands of people. And Prabhupada, after the marriage, he said, he was speaking, he said, this is the real United Nations. And everybody cheered. Haribo. And this is Subal Swami doing the fire sacrifice. And you can see that Western sadhu somewhere in the picture. Can you see him? His Holiness Radhanath Swami. In the upper left, barely see him. This is probably the only picture that's available. So Jean was wondering what happened to John, and she was back in New York, and I invited her to come to India, and I was hoping that she would also become attracted to Krishna consciousness. And she came to India to perhaps drag me back, but so it was an interesting time. When she first got there, I'd finished my photography, basically, of the devotees. So we wandered the streets of Mumbai and took our art photographs. This fellow was, with his head buried, was outside the entrance to the Cross Maidan. He didn't get much attention. Devotees got all the attention. So, here we are in Nepal, and the reason, well, let me go back a little bit. When Jean came, she met Prabhupada, in his room, and she presented her book, her photometrography book that we saw just a few slides ago. And Prabhupada looked through that book. He said, it's very nice. He really examined the book for the quality of the printing and the paper. He was very interested, of course, in printing and nice quality books. So he appreciated that very much, but he said he didn't know much about the technical aspect of photometrography. And so we mentioned to Prabhupada that we had finished our assignment, and we'd like to do another assignment and go to a quaint Indian village, untouched by modern technology. So we asked Prabhupada where to go. We figured that he would know a place. And Prabhupada said, he said, wherever you go, you'll get your cameras stolen and they will cheat you. And then we were quite crestfallen. Could you please change it back? Prabhu, it's too muffled. Go back to the original setting. Testing. No. Can you go back to the original setting? Hare Krishna. That's better. Thank you. So Prabhupada said, best you go to Vrindavan. So before we went to Vrindavan, we went to Nepal. Please. Hare Krishna. And we hiked up in the mountains, taking our black and white photographs. And then high in a valley, probably around 10,000 feet, we found a deserted shed. And we spent 5 days here. I had brought one book with me, Bhagavad-Gita as it is, the original Bhagavad-Gita. And Jean read that while she was there. And that was the first time she got a little inkling that she might be something other than just the body and the mind. So she was intrigued by that. And then we came down to Vrindavan, and Vishaka spent a lot of time photographing the widows in the temple, chanting every day, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. And she was very moved by their devotion and their simplicity. They had really very little, but they were satisfied. They seemed very happy. So actually I was initiated back in October, a few months before we got married. And that was in October in Calcutta. But Jean didn't want to take initiation at that time, but she did here in Vrindavan. After the Delhi Pandal, we came back down, from Calcutta to Vrindavan, then to Delhi. Calcutta to Delhi, and then Vrindavan. And then we had one visitor who showed up, and that was Radhanath Swami. He came to our marriage. So we only have one picture of the ceremony because it's quite amusing because our younger daughter, Hari Priya Devi, just got married. And there's literally thousands of photographs and a big video, and we have one picture. And we wouldn't have had this picture except for Malati Devi. During the ceremony, she came up to Vishaka and she said, "Where's your camera?" And so she got the camera, grabbed the camera, and took this one shot. But Prabhupada, unfortunately, is not in the picture. He was sitting on his asana to the left. So here's Vishaka with her camera. And this is Prabhupada giving us a tour of Vrindavan. It was the first tour in 1971 with a large group of devotees. Here Prabhupada is at Radha Damodar. And then he took us to the back side of Radha Damodar to the Samadhis. And this I believe is it Brahmanda Ghat, where Mother Yasoda saw the universe in Krishna's mouth. Prabhupada was explaining that pastime. His eyes became very big when Mother Yasoda saw the universe. And then Prabhupada took a bath. You've probably all seen these movies. Again, these are still frames from the movies. At first he didn't want to go in, but then he saw the devotees were encouraging, please come in. And finally he came in the Yamuna, bathed. That's Dr. Kapoor, Prabhupada's godbrother, O.B.L. Kapoor. Very, very wonderful man. Prabhupada would be carried in a palanquin in Varshana, up the steep steps and also along the ridge. This is Jaipur. So we traveled with Prabhupada to quite a few towns for preaching. This is Jaipur again. This is back in Juhu. Vishaka Devi and I served here for about 2 years. After our tour of India, we settled in Juhu. And this is the groundbreaking ceremony, Srila Prabhupada playing gong. I was very happy at this ceremony. And then while in Juhu, we got a letter from Karandar Prabhu, who was the head of the BBT. And he wanted us to make a film on the movement. At that point, there were no movies at all. So he asked Prabhupada if he approved of that. Prabhupada said yes. In fact, Prabhupada gave $16,000 of his book fund money for that movie. And previously, pretty much, all the money was spent for expanding the temples and printing books. So from this, we could understand that Prabhupada knew the importance of media. So we went back to America and started working the Hare Krishna People film. We're going to go through 4 of the films that Prabhupada saw, and I'll comment on each one of them, his reaction, his guidance. This is the camera that we use. It's got this covering on it to make it quiet. Prabhupada did not like noisy cameras. And this is the separate tape recorder that Vishaka used. So then the visual and the audio were separate. And this is the hand crank machine that we made the film on. And you could never wind it at the proper speed. So there's a lot of guesswork in the editing. You can see that under narration it says Howard Wheeler. That's Hayagriva Prabhu. He worked on the script. He's a wonderful writer. If you ever get a chance to read his books, please do. Wonderful writer. So this is amazing. We were shooting the film in 1973, and at that time the books were going out, being shipped all over the world. This is only 6 or 7 years after Prabhupada started, and just this huge, expansive movement was going on, spreading all over the world. This is the BBT warehouse in Los Angeles. Devotees operating a forklift. We try to cover all aspects of Krishna consciousness. This is Prabhupada meeting the chief minister of UP, I believe. I don't know his name. But anyway, there's a conception that Prabhupada was not very successful in his preaching in India before he came to America. But actually he met many, many influential people. And this is one of them. And when we went back to India some years later, we were invited to their homes for engagements. So Prabhupada had a great influence before his Western disciples came back and beyond. This is one scene in the film that's shot in slow motion. When Prabhupada saw this, he said, "Those cows are floating." And he said, "Can you fix it?" I don't think Prabhupada had ever seen slow motion. So we said, it would be very expensive to fix it, Prabhupada, but it's a special effect. And we had these cows floating down the hill to the music of Govindam prayers. It's one of my favorite parts of the film. So we explained this is a special effect, and Prabhupada said, "Then it is okay. It's all right." This is the last scene in the movie, Prabhupada, at the installation of the deities of the Bhakti-Vedanta manor. Shri Radha Gokulananda. So my father very kindly helped us. He donated this editing table, upgraded. He also donated a very nice camera, a new camera. And the next film we're going to talk about is called Brilliant as the Sun. This film was actually asked for by Prabhupada. In 1975, he asked us to make a film for the Gaur-Purnim festival to show his godbrothers that he was doing the work of his spiritual master to print and distribute books all over the world. So it's decided we consulted with Rameshwar Prabhu, the head of the BBT at the time. We decided to make a movie showing the one verse of the Bhagavatam going through all different aspects of production, from Prabhupada speaking the verse all the way to the final book. So after Prabhupada spoke the verse, especially for that film, and Dravida Prabhu is typing it up, the purport, and this is the verse, the very famous verse. This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and is arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. So all the production was going on at the BBT offices in Los Angeles. And every aspect of the book production, once it was finished, it was checked off. And this devotee is one of the fastest typists I've ever seen. She would type up all the manuscripts, and this would be fed into this computer that would print out the page. This is Archita Prabhu, who's still with the BBT 50 years later. And then the artwork would be photographed. This is the artwork for the cover. And we followed a painting going all the way through beginning sketch to completion. And then that was photographed for the cover. And then resized. All this is very easily done on a computer these days, without all these big machines. So back then also film was very, very tedious and expensive, just like book production. And then printing, and then finally distribution all over the world. And then we include reviews from very well-known professors at very famous universities, Princeton, Yale, Harvard. And then the final scene is Vrindavan Prabhu, one of the very famous book distributors, approaching a businessman who was also a devotee. And we were across the street on the second story of a building filming this, and it's live. He has a microphone on him. So we hear him speak the verse, the same verse, and show the book, and that's the end of the film. So we took this film to India along with this projector. It's called a Fairchild projector. And it was new technology, and it was a suitcase. Actually, it looked like a briefcase, a small briefcase. And you could open it up. Within 30 seconds, you could have the film showing. No screen. The screen is just built in. So I would sit in Prabhupada's room every day. Even if one guest came in, he would greet them and speak to them, and invariably he would turn to me and say, "Do you have that film?" And I would, set up the projector very quickly and show it. And people were quite amazed to see what Prabhupada had accomplished. So the next film was The Spiritual Frontier. And that was a request by Kirtananda Swami to make a film on the New Vrindavan community. Mangalananda Prabhu did the score, the music. He's a genius composer, lyricist, and musician. Very accomplished, still playing today. So we buried the camera in the earth, had the horse team run over it, and then reversed it for this shot. It's a very beautiful time of year. Prabhupada was always very proud of the milk production from the New Vrindavan cows. He would brag about it in India. He would say that they would give, and they would give 10 gallons, even 11, 12 gallons a day, these cows. We had a piece of glass on the camera for this shot. We showed the birth of a calf. When Prabhupada saw these puris cooking, he raised up out of Vyasasan and said, "I want one." This was a beautiful premiere. This is a wonderful premiere, the best actually, in the Temple Room in Los Angeles. The balcony was completely packed with the ladies, and the downstairs was completely packed with the men. Devotees came from all over the country, and wonderful time. This is Govindaji Temple, which later became Prabhupada's palace. It was originally begun as a temple, but Kirtananda Swami wanted to build a place for Prabhupada first. So all the work was done by the devotees themselves. This is a big tourist attraction in West Virginia today. Beautiful deities of Radha Vrindavan Chandra. And the last shot of the film is taken from a helicopter. We wish we had drones. A lot cheaper. And the next film, the final film that Srila Prabhupada saw, he saw 4 of the films. This was actually requested by the Bhakti-Yoga Institute, the science branch of ISKCON. And they wanted a film to prove that life comes from life and not matter. So they wanted us to, try to defeat the arguments of the materialists that life comes from matter. But we figured if we tried to do that, then the film would become outdated because their theories change all the time. So we decided to base it on the philosophy of Bhagavad-Gita. And this is the only dramatic film we made. It's about 25 minutes. And there's 2 devotees on a campus discussing, one's a materialist, he's taking a class in biology, learning all the materialistic ideas, how life comes from matter. And his friend on the left is studying religion. He's reading Bhagavad-Gita. So there's a debate between them. This is the professor, all played by devotees. This is Damodar Prabhu. And he's giving his idea how life comes from a formation of molecular gases and so forth to form the first cell. So he's meditating on this. So we use special effects to break down the body to different elements. So we see the bones, we see the nerves, we see the circulatory system, and then we go very deep down into the cells. Where is life, we ask. So this is a montage showing the progression of aging, and we just show the hands in this montage. Boyhood to youth, old age, and death. Then we have a scene in an operating room. Actually, this is our apartment. And the director was a nurse, a devotee nurse, who knew everything about operating rooms. So she directed the scene. These are all devotees again. And they're trying to bring a patient back to life. And we comment that once the soul leaves the body, there's nothing you can do to bring it back. And we have a graveyard scene with the priest throwing in the dirt. And then the materialistic person who's taking the course in biology, he's meditating on everything his friend said. And he comes to the conclusion that there must be, life comes from life. It just can't come from dead matter. So Prabhupada saw this film in his room in Mumbai, actually in I think it was April 77. Prabhupada was quite ill at the time. We showed the film in his bedroom. And members of the Bhaktivedanta Institute were there. And so we showed the film. After the film was over, there was dead silence. And that's not a good sign for a director. And so finally, Tamal Krishna Goswami spoke up and he said, Yadubara, this is a big departure from your other films. There's no devotees, you don't see, there's no kirtan. And a few others spoke. And one said that this film is for women and children. So I was thinking, that's a big population. So anyway, everyone was waiting for Prabhupada to speak. And finally he said, what is the result of showing this film? Because we told him we'd shown the film at a Sunday feast in Los Angeles. So after the film was over, one guest came up to me and said, thank you very much. I can understand I'm not the body. Now I can understand that. So when Prabhupada heard that, he said, then it is success. So, happy ending. Srila Prabhupada ki. That's the time. So do you have any questions? Yes.
So the first photograph, one of this year, first photograph, when we started presentation, the first photograph was there for.
Sorry, what's the question?
That was of which year? Which year? That was
This year.
Oh, that was 1970. The first photograph in the presentation was 1970. That was at the New York Temple. So if there are no more questions, yes, go ahead. Oh, there's Mike, good. Loudly.
Thank you very much. I have a question. Do you accept and photograph do you have other work than only photograph devotees and Prabhupada?
Yeah, actually, I tried to work on the outside. It was a big failure. It didn't work out. Actually, I had a job for 2 days as an assistant film editor at Canon Films in Hollywood. And the first production they put me on was a film full of drugs and you know what. So I quit. As I said, the magazine article on the devotees was my first professional assignment and my last. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to turn the program over to Madhava Prabhu. He's been my assistant for more than 25 years in distributing our films, and he's done a wonderful job on putting all the films in a pen drive. I'll let him tell you about it.
Hare Krishna. As you all have heard about the history of ISKCON cinema or Prabhupada vision of media preaching. So first of all, we are very thankful to Prabhupada who has allowed Yadubara Prabhu and Vishakha Mataji to take wonderful photos and videos. And many devotees, most of us are, except Maharaj and Prabhuji, most of us are very unfortunate that we never met Prabhupada, seen Prabhupada. But now we have a very great opportunity that all the work of Yadubara Prabhu, Vishakha Mataji and many more devotees is available in a very small pen drive, 51 years work. Everything of Srila Prabhupada is in a video format and in Hindi and English. You can easily play this in your Mac, your Android phones, and anytime with the subtitles. So those who are interested, they can come and this is that. We have this pen drive, metal pen drive. Yeah. It has a wonderful booklet also. The history which Prabhuji has explained, everything is very systematically presented in full color book. So those who are interested, I welcome them to Prabhuji, and Prabhuji will provide them this. Regularly the cost of this is 2,500, but for this festival, 1,500 rupees, including everything. Hare Krishna.
So the latest release is the Hare Krishna movie, Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement of the Swami who started it all. And that's on this pen drive also. It's in English and Hindi. Just a little bit about that movie. We estimate that probably more than 4 million people have seen it. It's currently on Amazon. We're encouraged to release it free. There's been many attempts at trying to copy and so forth on YouTube. But if we release it free, it won't be on Amazon. Amazon has a huge reach all over the world. It's a prestigious place to have your, book or film. So we're keeping it. It can be rented or sold or purchased. Also, the film is on our website, HareKrishnaTheMovie.com. HareKrishnaTheMovie.com. And it's available in 22 or 23 languages, subtitled. So it's in Arabic, it's in 2 Chinese dialects, it's in all the major languages of the world. And that's also for rent or sale. So please let your friends know about it. We've had wonderful response from that. I don't consider it my film. I've considered it all devotees' film. We had wonderful support. There were actually, if you look at the credits, there were over 300 individuals and companies that contributed to the film. So it took 4 years to make. And all the time we were meditating on how to properly portray the Acharya. Prabhupada's such a great personality. How do we transmit that to the public? So we wanted to, of course, reach the devotees and the public, and we hope we did that. So any comments, questions? We have a little more time. Actually,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for this wonderful presentation. I really wanted to ask, because as we all have found your service directed to show Prabhupada's spiritual life, and do you have tips for us how we can find the best way to service?
Yeah, the best way is to become pure. Purify our minds and hearts, then we can have some impact. Otherwise, we have to be detached from this material life. It's not easy. We're encased in these bodies and minds. It's not an easy journey. Constantly, being dragged by the senses. So yeah, work on our sadhana. Sadhana is number one. All right? And serve the Vaishnavas. If we can't follow properly, then at least serve the Vaishnavas, those who are advanced. No. Did you ask him?
Yes, I asked.
Maharaj, would you like to speak a few words? Huh? Yeah.
I didn't expect this, so here we are. So I'm very grateful to Yadubara Prabhu and the Shaka Devi for the wonderful work they've done in filming Srila Prabhupada. Still photos and especially movies. I was with Srila Prabhupada a lot in June. And when the films came out, and as Yadubara Prabhu mentioned, a Fairchild projector. And Srila Prabhupada would frequently show these movies to important visitors who came to see him. Often devotees ask me how they can increase their attraction for Srila Prabhupada and their appreciation of Srila Prabhupada. And I always say we should see Yadubara Prabhu's video series called Following Srila Prabhupada, which includes, I think, all the available footage of Srila Prabhupada and film. And the Hare Krishna film, I have seen it on a small screen, but I really like seeing it in movie theaters. It was shown in movie theaters. And whenever there was a showing, in the Los Angeles area, because I had my ashram in Santa Barbara, which is fairly close to Los Angeles. I would go. And one year, well, one time, I took a devotee named Rose Forecast, who began the folk program, Friends of Hare Krishna. And so I took her to see the movie in the theater. And she was 98 years old. She loved it. And I thought that she had the distinction of being the oldest person to see the movie. But then I spoke to our godmother, Guru Gauranga Prabhu, and he took his mother to see the film, and she was 99. So, yeah, I don't know who the youngest would be, but it definitely appeals to devotees of all ages, and not just devotees, even people who are not devotees can get a real sense of appreciation to the Prabhupada by seeing the Hare Krishna movie. Yeah. So, always the service, always the
Thank you, Maharaj. I wish Vishaka Devi was here. We usually do this presentation together, but as you know, most of you know, she's the president of the Bhakti-Vedanta Manor, so she's very busy. When she got that offer, she was shocked to become president. She'd never been president anywhere. And but she's doing a very good job, and I'm very proud of her. And also, I'd like to say that my younger daughter, Hari Priya Devi, she was married recently, back in November, and she married Bhishmadev Prabhu, and he's a graphic artist. He's a photographer. He does video. He does all the things that we used to do, and still are doing. And they just had a professional shoot. They covered the concert of Jahnavi Devi. She's a Kirtaniya. Everyone knows Jahnavi, probably, Jahnavi Harrison. And she did a concert last Wednesday in Atlanta, Georgia. So they covered it in still photography. So I'm very, very happy that they're taking over this service. So hopefully, and we really need a lot of media. We need a lot of production, because the outsiders are producing so much material, so expertly. So we need to come up to the standard of the Hollywood movies. And, I always dreamed of releasing a film in theaters, and finally that was realized with Hare Krishna. And I'd always wanted to do a dramatic feature film. That may never happen, but these stories like the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the great epics, those will eventually be done, very masterfully by Western, the Hollywood production companies. That eventually will happen. And one of the things we really need is good stories. That's what's really lacking in. Actually, it's lacking in the marketplace generally. We see so many films that are not very interesting. They don't really grab you. A good film is rare, and it all starts with a script. So we really need good writers. That's very, very important. It's the foundation of any film, is a good script. So if there are any, budding writers out there, please consider, taking courses or, read a book about movie script writing. There's many books out there. One of the best books available is a book called Story by Robert McKee. Story by Robert McKee. He's considered the best in the world, basically. So, all begins with a good story. And Prabhupada's story was it was fantastic. It fit the what's called the hero's journey. You may have heard of the hero's journey. It's the classic tale of a person coming up, getting a very difficult assignment in life, not carrying it out right away, but meditating on it, and finally attempting to do it with many, many setbacks, achieving a little success, continuing on, more success, another huge setback, and finally, great success. That's Prabhupada's story. It's a classic story found in all different cultures and religions. So, anything else?
Is there a place where that 64-gig petabyte is available now?
There's a table in the back. We have the sets there. Yeah. So thank you very much for coming. Been a very nice audience. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Bol.